Good morning and welcome to Missoula Real Estate Today. This is Denny Bedard. Missoula Real Estate Today is presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Diane's been working with buyers and sellers in the Missoula market for over 25 years and shares her insights on the local housing market. Along with her trusted partners, Diane provides complete service for your real estate transaction and brings us guests who provide useful information on industry-related topics and trends. And now, Missoula Real Estate Today on News Talk, KGVO.
Happy to have you with us on Missoula Real Estate Today. Thank you so much for making News Talk KGVO part of the weekend. And we're going to talk with a good buddy of mine, Bill Caras, Caras Nursery and Landscape. Of course, we're doing social distancing. In this case, a heck of a lot of social distancing, but nice of him to take time out of some free time. Bill, good morning. How are you?
Well, I am good. I'm down south a little bit, visiting a 4-month-old grandson, and but I'm really enjoying it down here in Salt Lake, checking out how they compare to us in terms of plant material and trees and fall, how they've progressed into fall compared to how Missoula has.
And I think the last time we had you on was probably pretty early in the whole coronavirus situation. And as a business owner, you, like so many, had to adapt and adjust on the fly. And how have you been able to manage and maintain all of that at Caras Nursery and Landscape?
Well, it was a challenge, as it was for everyone. We were fortunate that we were able to stay open, and but we were also very proactive. We had the luxury of having a lot of outdoor space, which, of course, is much safer than enclosed spaces. And so we moved our checkouts outside, and the weather was pretty decent this spring, so we were able to have people be comfortable at the same time. Moved a lot of other merchandise outside and covered it at night and did whatever we had to do. Every day we seemed to have a new challenge for a couple months, and then we try and solve it. And also we're proactive trying to get, some other solutions in place with fans and ventilation, and some of them work better than others. But bottom line is we just didn't have any chance, so we just had to keep adapting.
And speaking of adapting, 'tis the season. With the changes in the weather, I suppose you kind of had to modify a little bit of your outside customer service, or you're certainly about to, huh?
It was lucky, because some years, we have a really cold April.
Yeah.
It's kind of an extension of winter. And this year was actually pretty pleasant, and so we pulled it off somehow or other.
I had another good friend on the show not too long ago, Steve Taft, the owner of Montana Tool, and what we focused on that Missoula Real Estate Today program, Steve was commenting about, I don't want to call it a craze, but let's just say there was an increase in DIY interests with people spending more time at home. And I don't know that I categorize you necessarily as DIY, but did you get a sense that there were a lot of customers that had just decided, now is an opportunity, I've been wanting to do more gardening, or I want more plants, time to visit Caras Nursery. Did you see, or have you seen more of that in the past 8 months?
It's been tremendous, actually, and in all categories, not just, people sprucing up the house with mulch and fabric and those sorts of things, but a big increase in vegetable gardening, which I think is really good. The more people that can get familiar with that and succeed at it, the more they're going to want to do it in the future, which I think is really good for society as well as the individual. People get a good understanding of what it's like to grow their own food and that kind of thing, and how good it feels, let alone the healthy aspects of it. So whether it's a permanent shift, I'm not sure. We always have a fair amount, but this year it was exceptional.
Missoula Real Estate Today is presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Our guest, Bill Caras, owner of Caras Nursery and Landscape. And the weather the last few weeks, Bill, has certainly been up and down. We had that huge snowstorm a couple weekends back, and then just bitter cold temperatures, and they've obviously moderated over the past couple weeks, but more winter coming in this coming week. But what kind of effects did that early freeze have on things? What did you see?
Well, in 2009, we had it got down to 9 degrees, and it really hammered a lot of plant material. And then this year it was later in the month, but it got down to 0 essentially. And so a lot of the trees, just hadn't totally gotten dormant. They were starting to go dormant, but it didn't quite make it. So you'll notice a lot of trees around town, the leaves are frozen on the trees. They didn't fall off quite as normally as usual. So how that's going to affect them health-wise is hard to say. A lot of plants are, at least ornamental plants and trees and those sorts of things, come from originally different areas, and they may not be quite as adaptable to an early hard freeze like that. If it's a light freeze, they all expect it, let's put it that way, and they can do a natural finesse is what it's called, where they gradually shut down for winter. When you have an event like that, it can be kind of shocking to them. So we'll have to wait till spring to see if there's any really negative consequence in terms of tree health or plant health or even perennials in the ground. A lot of those were still growing actively. Roses were still blooming because they tend to be a little slow reacting to fall and frost. So there may be some dieback. There may be some things that just got completely off guard, and we might lose those. But
yeah,
the other thing is just cleanup. I think it's just going to be ongoing. Every time there's a wind, you're going to have a bunch of leaves back in your patio because they're just going to gradually fall off the trees.
So a little bit tricky right now to predict the long-term consequences. We hope it's not terrible for anybody, but, maybe just be ready to accept that, huh?
Yeah, there just is no way to really tell. And there's, when it comes to humans, you can get testing done and everything. But when it comes to plants, you just have to kind of wait and see. There isn't much you can do to help them. If tissue's been damaged to some level, there's really nothing you can do. And at this point, you can't even recognize it. So It's going to manifest itself later on.
What are some of the other things you're typically advising homeowners to do this time of year, in preparation for more oncoming cold weather and, of course, snow and all of that?
Well, yeah, I would say people should monitor their soil moisture because we're at the end here where you could actually water trees and shrubs in your beds and that sort of thing. And it's good for them to go into winter with a high moisture level. Same with evergreens. And then, once the ground freezes solid, which is going to happen pretty soon, and it probably is so in a few areas, then it's pointless to try and add anything. But that would be about it, is maybe soak in a few things that you're sort of worried about.
Okay.
And otherwise, you can do some cleanup projects if you're concerned about, some bugs under some boards that you've left stacked in the garden or something like that. But for the most part, let's let nature take its course.
Besides people doing more of it, are there any trends in gardening or landscaping right now? People wanting to do more of something or get started on some new things they heard about or have seen the neighbors doing, stuff like that?
Well, I think there are several trends, but the main one is the vegetable gardening, fruit gardening. People are just more interested in that, and they're thinking it's a good strategy for their lives, in fact, to learn how to do that. So, most everything that involved home improvement was strong this year. But like I said, fruit trees, berries, and vegetable gardening were exceptionally strong. And so I would say that's one of the bigger trends. Container gardening has been a big trend, and it continued this year. So people are doing their flowers. So they're doing more and more containers, pottery type of things. There's some beautiful pottery available anymore, and plants tend to do really well in larger pots. So I'm seeing a lot of that going on. And beyond that, I think there's just a lot of general interest. Missoula is kind of hard to figure just because there's so much construction going on. So, there's a big difference from having a new home that has really nothing and having an existing home that, maybe has changed the environment around it. Things have grown, and suddenly areas that were more sunny or more shady And so, there are really two different types of customers there.
Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Our guest, my buddy Bill Caras, owner of Caras Nursery and Landscape. Bill, I know there's lots of products that you can buy that should help plants and trees through the winter months. Are there any that you have been that swear by over the years, or any new ones? Anything you are particularly fond of that you like to recommend to your customers?
Well, we go to a lot of work to get a really broad selection of types of plants, and in a lot of cases, getting some things that are slower growing, stay smaller, end up smaller when they get a few years on them. They're not taking over the yard. So, plants that fit the space is a big thing for us anyway, and we try and help our customers with that, so they end up with plant material they can really enjoy, that's not going to take over the house or something like that. Beyond that, we've been on a real push for organics the last, it's been a couple decades, but really the last 5 years we've really tried to zero in on organic solutions to pests and fertilizers and those sorts of things. I think it's good for the environment, and in the end, it's really good for the plants.
And I'm sure a lot of customers come in with all kinds of questions pertaining to those. What other kind of questions are you usually getting asked? What kind of advice are you hopefully able to share a lot this time of year with people that come into Caras Nursery?
Well, real quickly, I could say that people ask a lot about pruning. If they're interested in pruning in the fall or winter, they can do so. If it's something that's flowering, that produces a fruit that people are wanting, or they don't want to cut off a bunch of flowers, they really should wait until they're done blooming in the spring. But otherwise, it's a nice time of year to prune, just because you're not dealing with all the foliage and that sort of thing being in your way. So pruning is a lot of times a wintertime project, but if it's like a lilac or a fruit tree or a flowering crabapple or something like that, and you prune it in the winter, those buds are already set, so all of those flowers will be gone when they would normally be flowering, say in May. So from that standpoint, there's no big rush, there's no big secret as to when to prune. Yeah. Additionally, people are, they're wanting to succeed with their plantings, and so I think mainly in our kind of halfway arid climate, it's a whole concept of understanding the right amount of water when you're establishing trees and shrubs and perennials. If you have poorly draining soil, you can overwater, but unlike other parts of the country, we don't have as much of that in quite a bit of the valley. We don't have the clay soils, so there it's an issue of making sure things don't dry out until they get a chance to root in and establish. Once they're established, they're so much more resilient. When they're first planted, not so much. Beyond that, the same applies to like grass seed questions. If you seed now, the temperatures just aren't warm enough for the soil, so it's going to sit over the winter. That's not to say it won't survive and germinate in the spring when it gets warm. But that's one of the three things that seed really needs. You need adequate moisture, warm soil temperatures, and more or less, if it's too cold, the seed will sit there. It'll stay dormant normally and get through the winter, but not always.
Getting back to pruning, are there any little, tricks and tips that can make your pruning more effective?
Well, yeah, I guess I could run down really quickly. Let's start with trees. Aside from specialty trees like weeping trees or something like that, most shade trees and ornamental trees, you want most of the branches going up and out. Okay. And so any crossing branches across the center of the tree, you want to remove those, especially good if you're doing it as the tree is developing, so that it's just normal. If you have trees that are more mature and have those sorts of branches, it's a bigger deal to cut some of those branches out. But ultimately, a little pencil-thin branch is going to be, several inches in diameter at some point. They're going to grow in length and diameter every year. So if you have one that's crossing another branch or right next to another branch, really you should think about removing those. As much as possible, you want to not cut the trees back. Okay. This whole idea of topping trees has been, on the list as a no-go for a long time, but there still are people going around saying that you need to do this. And there are even some quote-unquote professionals that are telling people if you don't top your tree, it's going to fall over. But, these trees have been around for millions of years, and they haven't been pruned, so you don't want to be doing something like that. It's really bad for their health and their structure. To me, a beautiful shade tree or a beautiful ornamental tree has a beautiful structure, but it doesn't look pruned. So beyond that, just getting familiar with individual plant needs, like potentilla and spirea are really common, and but they bloom in the summer, and so you can literally cut them back any time of year, and they'll come back and bloom. The other things I mentioned earlier, like forsythia and lilac and flowering almond and then a lot of the trees like crab apples and most of the fruit trees, if you go pruning those in the winter, those branches that you haul away were going to be flowers. And so you've cut those off for this particular year. So, just getting familiar with those little individual little things is really helpful.
I'm going to make you stay in the trees for a second. It's been a while now, but we have had guests on from Trees for Missoula on Missoula Real Estate Today. And, they talked about what trees they would like to see more of in Missoula with respect to climate. Since we're moving into the winter season, I guess we could say with respect to climate. Anything there you want to weigh in on?
Well, when I started 45 years ago with my dad out on 3rd Street where I grew up, we didn't have near the selection we have now. We've got a tremendous selection now, but I have to say Missoula's a maple town. We still sell a majority of maples, although we don't sell any Norway maples, which is what we used to sell the most of, that are all through like the university area. Those were planted a long time ago. So there are lots of new species of different types of trees that just weren't available before, and now they're available, and so people are able to get those and plant them. There are also some crosses where they'll take a certain type of maple and pollinate it with another one, and then end up with a bunch of seedlings, and then they'll select one of those that they think has the nicest set of attributes, and then they'll propagate it from there through grafting. So every tree is exactly the same. And there are a number of those that are really good. I think one thing people are probably noticing around Missoula is, our fall colors used to be mostly yellow from the Norway maples, but now all these other ones have the pinks and the oranges and the ruby red fall color, and it's really very, very pretty. And so from an enjoyment standpoint, I think there's a whole bunch of choices. I could go down through them, but beyond that, I wanted to say that maples aren't our only choice. They're just our most common choice. There are a lot of uncommon trees that were never available before, and so we really didn't even try them, that now are out and available. It's just people are so familiar with maples that a lot of times they come in with that intention. But if they're willing to do a little more research, there's just a whole bunch of different possibilities. And so, like within the maples, I mentioned Norway maples. Well, in what we call cultivars, which is types of maples, there are dozens and dozens of choices now. And so you can go to a sugar maple or several different types of sugar maples. That's probably my favorite of the dense shade trees. And so it's not just sugar maple anymore. It's all of these other ones that have various advantages that are then propagated. But if people are willing to look into it more, you can go with something more exotic, like a Turkish Filbert or something like that are perfectly hardy here, and they're just unusual, and they're not something that you see every day.
Mm-hmm. Are you the only guy that would know a Turkish Filbert when he saw it, Bill? Or?
Well, I think there is a whole tree community in Missoula, and they would know what it was when they saw it. But,
I don't want to hurt their feelings. I don't want to insult anybody here.
No, definitely, and that's just one of many unusual ones. We're doing a lot more ginkgos anymore. Ginkgos are a fabulous tree that goes way back into history.
Gosh.
And again, there are several cultivars of ginkgo, and so that's one that is really close to my heart. And like I said, surprisingly, they seem to be pretty dang good for our climate. And they have that fan-shaped leaf, which is just sort of really different from that standpoint. And but again, I could just go down the list, and there are always things happening in the ornamental horticultural industry that are bringing about new fun things to do. Like when I first started, bronze birch borer was devastating the birch trees in Missoula, and so I kind of quit selling birch trees. Well, now I have a number of them that are resistant to that, and so we're back to selling a lot of birch trees, and either with a peeling kind of parchment-colored bark or the pure white bark. You can plant those again and not have to worry about an insect coming in and boring into the trunk and eating all the live part and the tree dying from there on up.
It's great answer. Interesting. I'm glad I brought that up with you. There's some really interesting stuff in there. Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. Our guest, Bill Caras, owner of Caras Nursery. Also want to say thank you to some of Diane's marketing partners that help bring you Missoula Real Estate Today every weekend on News Talk KGVO. Rob Fleming from Man Mortgage, Miles Link with Opportunity Bank of Montana, and Carol Blodgett from MakeItMissoula.com. Bill, we might have time to get back to gardening and trees and plants and all that, but I want to make sure that I give you plenty of time to talk about what has been a wonderful, beautiful tradition in Missoula for decades now. How are things with the Caras Nursery Christmas store shaping up?
Well, it is shaping up. We're really changing it up because of COVID. Mm-hmm. Essentially, we've really opened it up. We don't have all these little nooks and crannies. We have it very open so people can social distance. The other thing we've done, it's quite interesting, actually. We've built outdoor displays that contain a lot of photo opportunities, so people don't even have to go inside if they choose not to. And then we've also, for the first time, because of this unique situation we have with houseplants being in such demand, they tend to come in and out a little bit. Right now, they're very much in demand. We've taken a large portion of our greenhouse, about 6,000 square feet, and heated it. Usually I turn the heat off in the winter because I'm afraid of the expense of heating, but we have it just nicely full of all sorts of tropical plants, air plants, topiaries, small house plants, large house plants, hanging baskets, bonsais, succulents, you name it. And our greenhouses, again, are very open, very wide aisles, and so people can kind of flow from the Christmas store, which again is going to look very different to people, into the tropical greenhouses, and then they can flow outside into the outdoor display areas. So we've really changed it up just with safety in mind more than anything. And I think people will really like it because it's when you get out in the overcast winter here in Missoula, sometimes walking into a nice warm greenhouse and lots of lush greenery makes you feel pretty good. It gives you a little shot of the tropics.
Oh, absolutely. Now, do you adopt kind of an annual theme for the Christmas store, or is that something we have to keep secret for a while longer? Or what are your artistic visions this year? I know that you've had to modify so much, as you've just mentioned, but there are still some things that hold true to tradition at the same time, I would assume.
Well, there's not an entire theme. There would be individual themes within it, and we do different ones every year. Every year we do one that's just kind of a lodge, sort of Montana-ish thing. But beyond that, we'll switch over. We'll have a big Santa area or a big snowman area. People really enjoy those kind of things. Some people collect them.
Yeah.
But beyond that, there's a lot of unusual stuff, so but people will be able to navigate it a lot more easily this year. They'll have lots of room. They shouldn't have to worry about anybody. And then we're putting in special ventilation in every particular area so that we're sure to have high level of ventilation, so that, again, people can feel safe.
That is something I would not have thought to ask you about, the whole collectible aspect of Christmas ornaments and decorations. That's something that has been strong for generations and generations, huh?
Well, yeah. I mean, some people collect a specific thing like Santas or snowmen, like I mentioned, but there are other things too. But beyond that, we do sell a lot of ornaments, and a lot of people come in to get ornaments, and then they give them to grandchildren or children or whatever to start building theirs. And some of these become really meaningful to people.
Sure.
And I know I'm a total sap for stuff from my childhood, and hence here I am still in the same neighborhood I grew up in.
Yeah, that's very true. And speaking of growing up with the business, and I know you're rolling your eyes thinking, oh, Denny's going to ask me about this again, and I apologize if it's repetitive, but I think it's just so cool. A little bit of the history of Caras Nursery, multi-generation family-owned and operated business, and a lot of wonderful local history to it.
Yeah, my grandfather actually came to America from Greece, and he had some distant cousins in Chicago. He ended up there for a couple of years, started working for the railroad like a lot of immigrants, and got sent to Missoula. He probably worked railroad on the way out here some too, and he liked it. And then I look at it, and I'm like, well, here we are 4 generations down the line, and we're all still here. So yeah. I think he found a pretty good place. Not that I don't have nieces and nephews that have gone elsewhere, but there's a pretty good population of our family still in Missoula, and we're really on the 5th generation. And so one of my grandsons is now moved back to Missoula, and I have a couple of great nephews and nieces, so that moves him down the line quite a bit. Mm-hmm. So he got to Missoula around 1908 and was immediately, motivated to maybe start a business, had a couple failures. Then he started succeeding in fruit, but he wanted to sell, plants and flowers, and so he started turning into that, and then this land became available on 3rd because he was downtown, and he thought, well, maybe I could just grow my own plants, and so we've been out there as a family since 1920,
right.
But it actually was an existing nursery to 1896 called Missoula Nursery.
Yeah.
And I have a small amount of memorabilia from the original guys. But unfortunately, some people are more nostalgic than others. So, but we're very proud of the fact we've been there so long.
Location, hours, contact information. Is the Christmas store up and running right now? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that or not. Are you?
Yeah, it's opening officially this weekend.
Good, okay.
Which is, I don't know the dates, the 10th or whatever it is. But the place is open. The tropical greenhouses are completely open and set up, and we'll be getting Christmas trees in here in a bit. So, yeah, we're open 7 days a week. We're on 3rd, where we've been for 100 years, 2 blocks west of Reserve at 2727 South 3rd West. And so it just past Reserve about 2.5, 3 blocks. And there you are to our home place.
Bill Caras, owner of Caras Nursery on Missoula Real Estate Today, presented by Diane Beck of Windermere Real Estate. I don't know if I will have you on again before the Christmas season, so I want to wish you the happiest of holidays. And thanks for taking time out of family time to be with us on the show this weekend, Bill.
Well, back at you. Happy holidays, and thanks so much. I always enjoy this.
Thank you for listening to Missoula Real Estate Today. We hope you found this morning's information to be helpful. If you have any suggested topics for any future Missoula Real Estate Today programs or any questions about buying or selling, contact Diane Beck with Windermere Real Estate. Email dianebeck@realtor.com or visit her website, homesinmissoula.com. We'll see you next time on Missoula Real Estate Today.